It's an uphill battle for the University of Johannesburg students who face endless problems. Most of them are unable to finish registration because of debt, and maintenance of residences has created a backlog in securing accommodation. Let's discuss this further with University of Johannesburg SRC President Mxolisi Manana. Thank you so much, Mr. Manana, for joining us this evening. Great to have you.
Good evening to you, Anlie, and your viewers, and thank you for having us.
So let's start off with the closure of registrations. That's bound to happen at some point in time. Was there sufficient notification given to students at UJ of when that would be, and what are the SRC's issues?
Well, first and foremost, before I can dive into your question, let me first and foremost acknowledge the outgoing Vice-Chancellor, Professor Mxolisi Manana, Africa's foremost polymath and scientific researcher from a village in Venda. And let me also acknowledge Professor Letlokwa George Mpedi, who takes over the reins as effective of tomorrow, which is the 1st of March. I think in the same light, I should be acknowledging the Office of the Registrar, Professor Kintabega, who's also will be leaving the university soon. So it just tells you the significant changes in leadership that the university is undergoing. To tackle into your question, let me start by saying that the Office of the Registrar has been informed through the SRC, of course, that should it have closed registration today, which was anticipated. Of course, this is after now an extension, a second extension that the university has given us. Then this would be deemed as a massacre towards the dreams and hopes of young people and black students in particular. We have engaged the university on several times, and especially as it relates to the historic debt. The registration has been extended until Sunday, the 5th of March. Which we appreciate, and we've thanked the university for their efforts as well. However, we do sit with a huge crisis of historic debt in the university, and that's what actually stops us from concluding registration as soon as possible, so that students can then continue with their academics. So.
And I'm going to jump in here because that was going to be my next question, is the issue around the acknowledgement of debt and the payment of 50% of historic debt before registration can take place. Now, if we work on the principle that an education institution is a business entity which needs to be financially viable and self-sustaining, then it makes sense that historic debt can't just be carried over indefinitely or entirely scrapped. But we know that the pressures on students are immense. Student debt, however, has over the years, and these are now two arguments, on either side. In between those two arguments, student debt has ballooned to over 16.5 billion rand, and that was just at the last count in 2022. So we're sitting in a situation where free higher education that was fought for and promised in 2017 is still a pipe dream, and students are bearing the brunt of it. Yet we're sitting with a situation where we can't seem to find a solution. What is the situation on the ground for the majority of students at UJ who face this situation of acknowledgement of debt, and how do we fix it?
I think, first and foremost, look, the University of Johannesburg values conversation. And the current conversation that the SRC is having is the AOD, the 50% upfront payment that is preventing the students from registering. And let me also allude to the fact that this crisis also is contributed to by the fact that NSFAS has been very unreliable of recent times. So there is a great lack of support that students have received from NSFAS. But let me also mention the fact that you mentioned that universities are also, there's a business side of it, In accounting terms, we refer to the University of Johannesburg as a going concern, meaning that the university is profitable. And we are saying, as of the 17th of February this year, the debt that is owed by the students who have applied for the SRC Trust Fund and cannot pay the 50% AOD rises up to about 18 million So we're saying that, can the university now look into its council reserves? Can it go to its council reserves and see how best it can assist on that 18 million debt so that we can assist those students? Because these are your missing middle students who cannot, who are too rich, as they would say, for NSFAS, but are too poor to afford their own fees. So I was calling for the university to say, we have realized that the university is a going concern, and we do have our, some money in the council reserves. So can the university now tap into that so that we can assist the students?
What's been the response from them?
Well, we have written to the incoming Vice-Chancellor, Professor Letlhoko Mpedi. We have also written to the Chief Financial Officer of the university, who did promise me today that they will get back to me on our requests from the SRC, and hopefully we would be able to be in a position to meet up with them this week so that we can table this discussion.
Apart from the fees and historic debt, which is a massive problem and an obstacle for many students, access to accommodation is another ongoing challenge, and we know the problem seems to be escalating. The more students that have access to higher education, which is a good thing, the more students who also concurrently need access to accommodation, and that infrastructure just hasn't been keeping up with the numbers of students. What are we looking at in terms of the backlog of residence maintenance that is keeping students from accessing accommodation?
Well, on residence and accommodation in the University of Johannesburg, well, there has been developments in the past 2 to 3 years where the university has been building on-campus residences and maintaining them. You know, there is great work that needs to be done, of course, in our Auckland Park Kingsway Road campus, in our Auckland Park Bunton Road campus, and of course in our Doornfontein campus. So there is a significant amount of work that needs to be done by the university. But we are also in a position to say that, look, we as the University of Johannesburg have realized, I mean, of course, from the rich history of the outgoing Professor Mxolisi Manana, the outgoing Vice-Chancellor, that, I mean, we do now have what you call an electric bus. So in infrastructure, we're doing quite well. The electric bus initiative is the first in South Africa. We're also saying that now, can the university move towards, I mean, we've discussed this in council for a number of times, and now we want to know the start date of when the university plans to move Soweto campus off the grid. Because, I mean, we can't have Soweto campus students suffering from, I mean, the lights that have been going off, and that is used as a burden from Soweto, you know, the ESCOM crisis and Soweto. So we cannot afford that. So we want to know the start date on when the University of Johannesburg plans to move Soweto campus off the grid, because this is also in efforts of going green by reducing our carbon footprint. So, yes.
Yeah, and in terms of making equitable access a thing of the now, we can't have students who are studying in Auckland Park having easy access to education because there is access to green energy or alternative energy, so load shedding doesn't impact them, but in Soweto students are disadvantaged by the greater impact of load shedding. Have they been able to give you assurances that there is sufficient budget to tackle this work?
Yes, of course. In the council meeting, I think, of June last year, there was that discussion that was tabled, and the university has confirmed and has given the SRC and the council at large the nod to say this is one of the things that we are going to start. So we're calling on the new Vice-Chancellor, Professor Letlhoko Mpedi, to say this should be also part of his work as he tackles and starts his role as the VC.
So you're putting that very firmly on his agenda list.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
Fantastic. I don't want to put you in the hot seat, but we're seeing a lot of issues in higher education across the country. So as the head of an SRC president for UJ, it's a big university. What is your perspective on the state of our higher education? We're seeing ructions in terms of leadership of institutions. We are seeing issues of students continually dragging on, not being sufficiently addressed. We are seeing government slow to come to the party with an actionable plan and with implementation of plans that have been put in place for the past couple of years now in terms of making higher education access sustainable. What do you think are the top two things that we should be looking at?
I think we did start with online learning. I mean, just when COVID hit the country. So the online learning that has been put in place and has been rolled out by our universities has proven to be a success, I mean, over the past years. And this is something that also we should be considering. We don't really have to, as we reimagine the future, of course, we don't really have to have students on campus in classes, but students can join from their laptop, they can join a Microsoft Teams class, and they can participate in class, they can interact with the lecture. And so one of the ways that we would propose is that this online learning direction should be pursued, yes.
And in terms of access to affordable broadband Wi-Fi connectivity, I mean, that's something that we've been looking at for a number of years in South Africa. In your experience, do students have good access to internet, or are many of them still struggling to tap into the possibilities that online learning offers?
Well, as a leading institution in 4IR in the University of Johannesburg, there is access, there is equitable access to Wi-Fi and the internet. So we do have the measures.
And is that only on campus, or is that off campus as well for students?
This is also off campus, because the students who reside off campus, those service providers are given the strict rules that apply to on-campus residences. So that is also the case even in our off-campus residences. However, we have realized that there is a significant work that also needs to be done with off-campus accommodation providers that need to also make sure that they level up insofar as providing Wi-Fi access to our students.
Well, thank you very much for speaking to us this evening. We do understand that there are many challenges faced by students across the country, and we wish you good luck for the year ahead at UJ.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks.